let's talk about how emotional immaturity ruins relationships. But first, we're going to talk about this blinding light that is surrounding my car, and it reminds me of like an alien invasion, right? Like when the mothership's coming down and it's got that light going, and it's just totally blinding. um, Healthy relationships, from what I've learned, are all about a balance between two people of mutual, reciprocated give and take. It's fascinating for me because as I reflect on my journey of healing and everything that I've been through, not going to go into detail as to, you know, just the logistics of what I've experienced and everything and why I've experienced and attracted what I have. But what I will say is that I used to believe that I didn't have needs, right? And so because of that, I never had healthy relationships years ago that consisted of a healthy dynamic of mutual give and take, right? And so therefore, any relationship that I had was pretty much all take from Chris, take from Chris, take from Chris. And I accepted that because I believed that that was what I deserved. The fascinating thing about unhealthy relationships, which from what I understand is rooted in emotional immaturity, really, emotional immaturity, it's not just one thing, but from what I understand, from what I've learned, it usually results from a person either not giving a fuck about the other person and their needs, or just them being totally blindsided to that kind of stuff, because usually it has to do with narcissism and a total lack of just seeing the other person, right? Just believing that the fucking universe revolves around them. I mean, I'm pretty sure we've all heard it before. And that's just the kind of way that that's just basically the way that it works, right? Emotional immaturity is very fascinating to me, right? It usually has to do with some sort of damage happening very early on in a person's life, in childhood. And it basically, of course, unless they do the work, it cuts them off. It basically stagnates them at a certain point emotionally. And this is the kind of thing that leads to things like black or white thinking, right? A person is either all good or all bad. There is no both and, right? Emotional immaturity ruins relationships because you literally can't have a healthy relationship consisting of a reciprocated mutual give and take between two people, because one person or both people just don't see the other person and their needs, and they don't see any reason to fulfill those needs. It's all about them. Again, thus narcissism. And it's just fascinating to me because, like when I look at emotional immaturity, I see a lack of just like healthy integration in many ways. And especially, it has to do with like black or white thinking, of course. I've experienced a lot of emotional immaturity in people. And it's actually fascinating. I'll address this, not going to name any names because boundaries are important to me. I had a relationship many years ago that I didn't realize at the time was exceedingly unhealthy. And as I grew up and evolved and grew and healed and everything, I started to see that relationship for what it was. I also found out from that person that they were doing something in our relationship that was not healthy. And so recently, actually, that person reached out to me, and they were, I don't even know like what word to use to describe it, but the way that they approached me was, it was kind of like black or white, because it was like there was the idealization to reel me in, and then after they realized that they didn't get what they wanted, there was the devaluation, right? So it was the, oh, I miss you, and then it was just absurd trash talk, verbal abuse, all that kind of stuff. And, I just kind of like look at that and I'm like, okay, I know why you're not in my life anymore. And you're going to stay out of it. And so I don't, I see that stuff for what it is, and I understand, okay, this person is emotionally immature. They're incapable of holding a healthy adult relationship. They probably think the entire fucking universe revolves around them, which again is occurring from damage that happens very early on in life, right? Clearly, nobody on the face of this planet, right? No healthy adult, no adult in general. The universe does not revolve around anybody at all, period. So if you believe it does, it is time for a wake-up call. It is time for a reality check, because bad news for you, it does not. And that's just the way that it is. But when your emotional immaturity ruins your relationships, yeah, black or white thinking is not going to be a healthy way of approaching things, because life, the world, people are not just all good or all bad. They're not, it's just not the way that it works. And if you find out that somebody has bad qualities, what I would like to argue as unhealthy qualities, and you previously saw them as all good, you're probably going to flip a fucking shit and throw a tantrum. But news for you, you have some growing to do. And I'm genuinely not trying to be like sarcastic or anything. I'm just totally fascinated by emotional immaturity and how it genuinely does fuck up relationships, because it does. You cannot have a healthy adult relationship with somebody who is emotionally immature. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. An inability to take responsibility for your own fucking self. People that are emotionally immature tend to put the responsibility that they should put on themselves on other people. I have experienced this with other people multiple fucking times throughout my entire fucking life. I actually learned that it was my responsibility to caretake for other people. No. Yeah, emotional immaturity fucks up relationships because you really can't go far with it. Unless you have a person, who is in a relationship with somebody who is emotionally immature, that person is just willing to stay there, right? And that other person that is emotionally immature, like perfectly like a puzzle piece, fits into that person's life. And it just continues to reinforce the same belief that person is responsible for this other person, right? You're dating a fucking child. You're dating a toddler. You're dating like a 2 or 3-year-old, right? And that's just the way that it is. Or, in a platonic sense, your friend is a little boy or a little girl. And that's just the reality of it, right? You can't go far with it because it just doesn't work that way. They'll talk over you. They'll insist that they're always right. They'll idealize you and then devalue you. You cannot be in a relationship with them unless they can abuse you. And if they can't abuse you, they'll find somebody else to abuse. It's really just overall a lack of responsibility. And this actually makes a lot of sense as to why it is a lack of responsibility. In this case, I'll say a lack of personal responsibility. Toddlers, they really, from what I understand and what I've learned, they can't take responsibility for themselves because they are not an adult, right? They are not a fully functioning, healthy adult with healthy integration of multiple parts, right? So therefore, they're relying on a parent to take responsibility for them, to feed them, to be there when they shit their pants so that they can wipe their ass and everything, to take care of them, right? And so emotionally immature people don't take responsibility for their lives because they are literally stuck in childhood. They're stagnated at like 2 or 3 years of age. I don't know the exact number, but these are things that I've learned. And so, yeah, that's gonna fucking ruin your relationships. Again, I'm not trying to be like funny or sarcastic. It's kind of baffling. It really is. But if you are not a healthy, integrated adult, you're not going to be able to have a relationship. I mean, you can be fully grown physically, right? You can be a fucking man or a woman, right? Fully grown physically, hair and everything, boobs and everything, right? And you can still have the emotional maturity of a fucking toddler. And therefore, with that, that is not going to work with any healthy adult, ever, period. It just does not work that way. The person's damage that is with the other person who's emotionally immature, again, it's like a puzzle piece that perfectly fits there, right? So yeah, emotional immaturity fucks up relationships because it just doesn't work. It literally doesn't work. There's really no other way to say it. But it's just fascinating how people can hold, and I've been there, people can hold relationships with people that are emotionally immature and stagnated. It is not a healthy, mutual, reciprocated give and take dynamic. It is a give, take. And when I say give and take in this sense, I'm not saying mutual. I'm saying you give, and then even more is taken and taken and taken from you. Yeah, I don't think that anybody wants that.